Awesome. Alrighty. Obviously, my name is Jakob Schmierer, and my project is called VoxCoach AI. So, here we have my table of contents. In my presentation, I'm just going to go through a brief introduction about me and the project, my problem statement, why it matters, my solution, and then my future plans for the model. So, there's me. I'm an incoming high school senior. I'm very passionate about computer science. I row varsity crew. I have for the past, it'll be 5 years this year. I'm very passionate about that, and I enjoy coding and building projects. So my project that I've built here is an AI-powered interview coach, essentially, that'll analyze your answers in terms of both structure and your actual response, and then it'll track your progress, of course, to let you know how you're improving over time. So the problem that my product focuses on is the fact that personal interviews and presentations are a huge factor in both the college admissions world and the job acceptance world, but properly preparing for it, it's not typically taught too much how to do that, and resources are expensive and hard to find. So the current main challenges with it, even if you are able to practice on your own, it's very hard to be self-aware of your own speech patterns, and more specific things like using filler words, and especially stuff like your speech cadence. That would be very hard to track on your own. Additionally, actual coaching, like I said, tends to be very expensive, and somewhat subjective as well. Um, Along with the self-awareness, there's public speaking anxiety. That the public speaking anxiety is a big thing, especially in today's world, which I'll loop back to later. Um, but my app should help to at least somewhat help with that. And additionally, when practicing on your own, it is very difficult to track progress unless you have an interview coach or unless you're writing down everything you do, which I imagine most people would not do. So this is an important problem because, like I said, about the speech anxiety, the National Institute of Mental Health says that actually 75% of all adults experience speech anxiety. So that is clearly a big problem because speech can be very important, especially in, like I'm saying, interviews. Um, Additionally, the traditional methods we have, they lack quantitative data, um, like the stuff I was saying before, as in filler words, pacing, and variety in vocabulary. And yeah, so my AI-driven app should be a big assistance to all of this. So here it is. I have some screenshots of the interface here. So VoxCoach AI, effectively how it works is you'll input um, information about yourself. For the first main thing you pick is whether you're using it for the college interviews or job interviews. Then you can insert either some basic data about yourself, or you could even paste in your entire resume. The AI will read and generate questions based off that. Or if you don't input anything, it'll just give you more general questions. Then it records your response. You can do as few or as many questions as you want before going to an analysis. But then when you get your analysis, it'll give you feedback. The main categories of feedback is what's the first thing is called the STAR structure, which is a very common and recommended structure for interview answers. It stands for situation, task, action, and result. So typically, that's how you should
Uh,
structure your
Jacob, could you
answers.
just go straight to your demonstration? Remember, this
Oh,
our solution, this our solution slide is meant to be like a quick like intro. Does that make sense? We're going too much into
okay.
detail here. Okay.
Understood. Yeah, I can get into the actual demonstration, of course.
Yeah, we only have 10 minutes, right? That's why. Sorry. Yeah.
Yeah. No, all good. So here's the website, here's the main page. I'm signed into one of my accounts right now. So when you enter the workspace, I just wrote this in there. That saves in there. So you can select your target. I'll put in an example program. I'll just throw in Harvard because that's what it's asking for. And Just for the sake of demonstration, I'll throw in some other background data too. Let's say one science fair in sophomore year. We can say, hmm, I don't know, valedictorian, why not? And we can say, what's another good activity? Let's say co-president of yearbook club. I've just made this stuff up. Then I can save it to my account. So every time I go into the page, this stuff will be saved. And now it'll generate a question based on some of this info. Okay, here. So as I respond to it, it tells me my cadence. It'll tell me pauses if I were to take a pause like that. Okay, I guess that wasn't so long that it counted it. And you can see here, it's also counting my filler words. If I were to say other ones such as like, I think it'll track those, count those because those are problematic
Did you say
words. Um, yeah. Sorry, the model isn't so great at catching yet.
Ums and
Oh,
ahs,
there we
yeah.
go.
Oh, there you
It
go.
got it there. And
Yeah.
then let's generate another question. There we go. Now it's asking about the yearbook club. Let's say being co-president of the yearbook club influenced my leadership style because I had to keep track of a bunch of students who it was difficult because there were many students and I didn't really know them. Um, and I don't know, I wasn't really co-president of the yearbook club, so I'm not really sure how I'd answer that one. And then if we just go to the analysis page, okay, not great, but that's all right. So it tells me there's the star analysis. Now here's the section about my vocab and just overall vibe. So yeah, it'll tell me filler words. Yeah, disjointedness. Okay. And then it tells me some strengths and some weaknesses. And then it'll also tell me how to improve, right? So better ways to answer. And the last part of the site is here's the progress page. So it'll tell me overall strengths, overall weaknesses, and then you can see your
The
previous
previous sessions as well, right? Cool.
sessions, right? And I put them in drop down menus because it would just be a ton of text
Yeah,
if it
that's
was.
a good idea. Cool. All right. One last question then. How do you how do you plan on improving this? I just want to know your thoughts.
Yeah. So firstly, I think I could make the questions could be even more specific, honestly. Or right now what it does is it just generates new questions like each time you hit next question. So maybe I could do once a user inputs all their data, I could just make a set of like 10 to 20 questions. That way it knows it won't repeat anything, and B, it can make sort of a structure to the overall questions. Um, I could also definitely make the analysis better. I think I could probably, if I were to find some examples of actual good interview question and answers and feed it to the model so it knows even better what to look for in a response.
Cool. Interesting. I think one aspect of it that you're not quite getting is that I guess I don't blame you for this because you haven't probably applied for jobs and stuff, right? But
Right.
especially when you're preparing for an interview, right? Your resume as resume and what's on that page, right? Your CV really matters, right? Maybe there's like a way of maybe uploading your resume to to this app. That'd be pretty good, right? That makes sense. So it'll just read your resume. It knows what you're good at, what you're bad at, and can ask you questions accordingly, right?
Yeah. Okay.
Right. So something like that would be probably good. And one more thing, like when you're like preparing for an interview, right? It's kind of like the what you're practicing your speaking skills, right? You're practicing how you look. That's not just about the voice and what words you're using, but it's also more so about like the tone of the words you're using, along with like stuff like are you using the correct body language? Are you taking pauses properly? Right? Does that kind of make sense?
Yeah, for
Right. So
sure.
that sort of okay, obviously getting detecting all of that can be a bit tricky. So simple solution for that maybe is like imagine when the mock interview starts, right? If it's recording you, right? You can get permission to use the webcam of the user and stuff. So you can record them as well, right? So maybe like after the session is over, they can go back and look at themselves giving the interview as well, right?
Hmm.
From the interviewer's perspective. think that will inform them about a lot as well, right?
Yeah.
Other than that, these are my two suggestions at least. But like so far, it's been pretty good. All right. What about like what sort of models are you using for one the what do you call the text generation, and what's the model for this and the speech recognition?
Yeah, so it's all different models of Grok that I have.
Cool.
Um, yeah, that's pretty much the
It
whole answer.
basically
I'm
is
just
Grok, right?
using
Okay. Yes, using Grok. Okay. One
yeah.
last question for you. How do you define an API? What is an API?
Um, the API is like the server with it has like the a bunch of stuff for the user to it's like a database with a bunch of info for users.
And no, not quite there. Look, Jacob, API is simple, right? You just said right now using Grok, right? But what does that mean? Basically, there's a website out there in the real world called Grok, right? It has a bunch of models that are hosted on their server, right? So like when your app needs to communicate with their app, does that kind of make sense? Right? So the way they
Mhm.
communicate is through the API, right? The API is just a bunch of rules and regulations around like how you can communicate with it, right? So that's why you have to put in the key, you have to like there's the usage limits and stuff like
Right, the
that.
API keys. Okay,
Yeah,
gotcha.
again, like similarly to how we browse the web, right? Like your app is also like going to their website and like being like, hey man, I want this. Can you give me the result of this? I want to use this model. That's what the API does, right? It's an interface. It's kind of like with communication, right? Cool.
Okay.
Okay, really good presentation so far. I'm quite impressed. Your presentation skills are really good. Like, there's no
Mhm.
area where I felt like you're lacking there. Like one, I guess, not really like a criticism, but one thing you might also like you can think about, right? Is that like, like certain ways that people speak, right? For example, like when there's two different styles of like giving presentations. One is more like a conversational style where you just like talking like how it's just like talking to a friend, right? Just explaining like, hey man, this is how it's going, blah 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 blah, right? I think that's kind of what you're doing right now. But there's also another style which is more so like presentation based almost, right? Where you're like, sorry, not presentation, like speech based, where you're like, public speaking, you're like the way people speak when they're doing public speeches is rather different, right? They enunciate certain words more, they stress certain words more. There's it's more almost more musical, right? Does that kind of make sense to you?
Yeah.
Right? So now that is also like especially with larger audiences and things like that. That can be a style you can also adopt, right? That's it. So maybe like have some variations in your pitch, right? Go higher, go lower, like stress certain words, like how you can lower your volume to place emphasis or make it loud, right? Again, that's public speaking stuff, but like you can also apply this here, right? Again, depending on the audience. I think it's just me and you. That's why I
Mhm.
feel like a conversational style works better. But like, keep this stuff in mind. Okay.
Yeah. Okay,
Cool.
thank you. Yeah.
Hopefully you understood what I said. Any,
Yeah, no,
right?
I get it for sure.